Today we're going to review some topics from Unit 7 on integers. This will help you complete the end of Unit 7 summative assignment. In my first example, I'm going to cover two things. I'm going to model for you the GCF, which stands for greatest common factor, and I'm going to use that in combination with the distributive property. Starting with GCF, I want to list out all of the factors of the two numbers in this problem. So 12 and 8. So what I'll do is I'll list out my factor pairs. So I have 1 times 12, 2 times 6. And when I'm making my list, I'm starting with 1 in the number and working my way through other whole numbers. So next would be 3 times 4. If I continue working in this way, the next set would be 4 times 3. And once I see these reversed, so 3 times 4 and 4 times 3, I know I've completed my list. I'm going to repeat that for the other number in this problem, 8. Again, I start with 1 times 8. You're welcome to use a times table or a calculator to help you with this step. Going from 1, 2 times 4. And then I would want to double check that 3 is not a factor. And again, using a calculator, if I take 8, that original number, and divide it by 3, it gives me a decimal. So I know that that's not a factor. And so then 4 would be next, and I know 4 times 2 gives me 8. Again, that's my flip. To find the greatest common factor, the next thing I'm going to do is circle things that are in both lists. So 1 is in both, 2 is in both, 4 is in both, and nothing else is shared between 12 and 8. Now to show this with the distributive property, I'm going to take that greatest common factor, 4, and I put it outside a set of parentheses. And if we remember the distributive property, we want to take the 4 and multiply it by something to get 12c. So I know 4 times 3 will give me that 12. Just keep your variable c. And then to get 8, I would do 4 times 2. Okay, so the inside of the parentheses is coming from your factor pair. That's where the 3 comes from, and that's where the 2 comes from. Right. My next review problem is again going to cover two concepts. We talked about inequalities, and I'm going to show you how I would solve an inequality and then how I would in turn graph it. So solving inequalities works just like we would solve an equation. We just have a different symbol in the middle. So what I'm going to use is my inverse operation, which means opposite. So this would read 2 times g is greater than 18. So the inverse of multiplication would be to divide. And I want to divide on both sides. By using division, times 2 and divide by 2 cancel each other out, leaving the variable by itself, keeping the inequality symbol the same, and 18 divided by 2 is 9. When you're graphing an inequality, what I'd like you to do is create a number line. The number that you have here in the inequality, I'll put right in the middle. I'm going to just complete a few numbers on the number line. Don't have to go crazy. Arrows because it's a number line. I'm going to put a circle at the 9. I'm going to leave it empty because a 9 is not included in my answer. If there was a line underneath like that, then I would shade my circle in. But there isn't, so I leave that circle nice and empty. And that reads greater than, and so greater than I would shade my line in like so, including the arrow. Next topic, we got into graphing in all 4 quadrants, and some of the things that we did included graphing shapes, like this example I'm about to do. So I'm not only going to graph these points, but I'm also then going to find the area. Okay, so -3, 4, I have a negative x, so I'm going to go to my -3 and then a positive y, so over and up. The next one is 5, -6, so x is positive this time, so here's positive 5. Y is negative, so I'm going to go down to the -6. Then I have 5, positive 4, so again, positive x, positive y, so to the right and up. And then lastly, -3, -6. -3, -6. So because this one forms a shape, I'm going to connect these dots, and I'm only connecting them again because it's asking me to then find area. So I'm going to identify the shape, and this is a rectangle, and so to find area, I do base times height. For this step, I'm going to have to count the base and the height. The base is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Be careful to count the boxes and not the lines. Then the height is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And 8 times 10 gives us an area of 80. Make sure you're showing your work for full credit. You can use a calculator as needed to do that multiplication step, but please show your work and your counting for your base and your height. Keep in mind that if this shape was a triangle, I would do base times height and then divide by 2. Right, the last thing we'll go over is I'm going to show you a word problem where I'm going to calculate the LCM, or least common multiple. What I'm going to do in this problem is I want to find the overlap between when Lionel buys apples and when he buys oranges. So I'm going to list out the multiples of those days. So for apples, he buys every 4 days, so on day 4, on day 8, he buys them then again on day 12. So again, I notice this is 4 times 1, 4 times 2, 4 times 3, 4 times 4, 4 times 5. List out a few to begin, and then I'm going to repeat that step for oranges. Okay, so oranges happens every 5 days, so on day 5, on day 10, on day 15, on day 20, on day 25, and on day 30. The point of the least common multiple is to identify when something happens first. So I'm looking for when they have something in common at the smallest. So 4 is not in common, 5 is not in common, 8 is not in common, 10 is not in common, 12, 15, 16, but then I see 20 appears in both of my lists, and that's the first time, so 20 is the LCM. Use these examples and other YouTube videos to again support you as you continue to work on the end of Unit 7 summative.